I realized I had been deceived during the first New Year's after marrying my husband, James. While helping with the holiday meal in the kitchen, my sister-in-law, Emily, made a snide comment. "Susan, are you bad at cooking? Make the presentation nicer. It's killing my appetite."
I am no culinary genius, that's for sure.
I struggle with presentations, but I was doing my best. Still, I thought it was unnecessary for her to call me out like that, especially with other female relatives around.
Just as I sincerely asked for help, my mother-in-law Tiffany interrupts and says to me, "Plating food is basic, right? Especially when it's James' favorite dish. You've never cooked it at home, so? You don't have a sense of how to plate it, do you?"
A poor James. He married a wife who can't even cook properly.
There's a reason you have been divorced before, you know.
Did your ex-husband cheat on you? Because he got tired of your bad cooking and careless personality.
Tiffany and Emily took turns making these comments and finally walked away, looking annoyed. They complained but never actually helped. Instead, another female relative stepped in to assist me. What surprised me more than being criticized for my lack of cooking skills was the drastic change in their attitude towards me. 6 months ago, I remarried. After divorcing my cheating ex-husband 2 years ago, I met James, who is younger than me. We hit it off and quickly started talking about marriage. But James and I love spending time outdoors. So we went fishing and camping together. We decided to get married. James is active but kind, and I felt comfortable around him. I was worried whether his family would accept me, a divorcee, but when I visited his family home, they welcomed me warmly, and my worries vanished.
It's nice to meet you, Susan. If you're okay with our son, please marry him.
Good for you, James. You found a kind wife.
I had some interactions with my previous husband's family, but we never got close. They were wealthy and formal, and I, being an ordinary person, couldn't fully understand their values, so I was mostly worried about getting along with this new family. But I thought everything would be fine since they welcomed me warmly. That sense of security must have been fake. Throughout my stay, Tiffany and Emily kept bad-mouthing me. I was shocked by their change in attitude. We said on the night of January 3rd, I finally returned home and felt relieved to the point of tears. Then in August, during the summer vacation, my husband suggested going back to his family home. By now, my anger and sadness had faded, and I thought maybe they were just stressed out at that time. So I decided to accompany my husband back to his family home.
Let's buy lots of gifts to make them happy.
I was still a bit scared of Tiffany and Emily, but I thought I could manage for a few days. I thought that the New Year's incident was just a bad dream. I kept thinking that until we arrived at my in-laws' home, which is in a coastal town in the neighboring state. We drove half the day, and due to traffic, we arrived in the evening.
Welcome home, James and Susan. James, Dad, and the uncles are at their usual beer. Why don't you join them? They all seem to want to see you.
Really, hey Susan and Kamala?
Oh, we were planning to have a girls-only time. Thought Susan might enjoy that more.
If that's the case, go ahead, James. Have fun.
James looked like he wanted to say something, but eventually left alone saying, if Susan is okay with it.
After seeing off James, I tidied up a bit and headed to the living room for the girls-only time that Tiffany mentioned.
Tiffany, since it's girls only, is there something I should do?
When I asked Tiffany, she happily replied,
Axayer, I was thinking of making some tea. Could you pick some herbs from the garden? The ones with white flowers.
Oh, Susan, while you're at it, could you feed the dog?
They have a large dog at their home. The dog is gentle and has taken a liking to me, which is adorable. I have always wanted a dog but couldn't afford one as a child, so I was genuinely happy to take care of the dog.
Sure, I'll head to the garden.
I took a bowl for the herbs and a plate for the dog food, put on my sandals, and went out to the garden. Immediately after, I heard the sound of a lock. I turned around in a panic. Tiffany and Emily were watching me through the window, smirking. That's when I realized I had been tricked by Tiffany and Emily again. They had intentionally given me a task outside. They even sent James away and kept me here under the guise of a girls-only time. Up all to lock me out. Tiffany and Emily are terrible people who take pleasure in such childish malice. They ridiculed me for being a divorcee and bad at cooking during New Year's, but that was just talk. Next time, they actually locked me out.
For a woman like you, raised by a single parent and bad at housework, doesn't belong in our home. We don't need to feed you or give you a place to sleep. If you still want to stay, why not sleep in the doghouse? It's a large doghouse. They're suggesting that someone as petite as me could fit in there. Hilarious, Susan, you've become a dog.
It's a large doghouse. They're suggesting that someone as petite as me could fit in there. They're suggesting that someone as petite as me could fit in there. Hilarious, Susan. You've become a dog.
Hilarious, Susan. You've become a dog.
Emily clapped her hands and laughed.
This is cruel. Stop it, please. But they just laughed and didn't unlock the door.
Executing, I wondered how to get back inside, but realized that even if they let me in, they would probably continue to mistreat me. Then it hit me. My car keys were still in my pocket. If I can't go inside the house or join my husband, I can just kill time outside, I thought. I took something out of the car and quickly set it up.
What on earth are you doing? Tiffany covered her mouth in astonishment.
And for good reason. What I had taken out of the car and set up was a tent we used on last week's camping trip. They probably never expected me to opt for outdoor comfort.
Stop it, you are ruining the lawn.
And you're so rude. You're never setting foot in this house again.
Ignoring Tiffany and Emily, I decided to make myself some hot coffee on a small camping stove I had left in the car. Even though it's summer, it had been cloudy all day and it got quite chilly as night fell. It's a season for iced coffee, but hot coffee felt more satisfying. But before I knew it, the family dog who had come out of the doghouse came over to warm up by the fire. Sorry for the noise, I said. Oh right, I was supposed to feed you, wasn't I? Here you go. I put the plate of dog food I had left on the ground in front of him, and he started eating with gusto. When I petted him, he let out a happy little bark. I thought I had no allies in this house, but with this big, gentle dog here, I knew I would be okay until my husband returned. But my husband had left in the evening, If he's drinking, he won't be back for a while.
Let's go into the tent. You can come too. I laid down in the tent with the dog.
I petted the dog sitting next to me and noticed that despite his fluffy fur, he was quite thin. It must have been a long time since he had been petted, as he was snorting happily. Maybe this dog doesn't get much attention. Is this the first time he's been petted in a while? He seemed really happy. I started to worry more about this dog than about myself.
Shall we go find them? No point staying here. The dog probably didn't understand my words, but when I spoke, he barked and seemed to nudge me forward. I folded up the tent, got in the car with the dog, and drove into town.
I folded up the tent, got in the car with the dog, and drove into town. I parked the car in a random lot and walked around the town with the dog.
There are so many bars. It's hard to tell.
However, I heard familiar voices coming from a bar in the direction the dog was heading. It was my father-in-law Thomas and James. The dog must have led me here by recognizing their scents or voices. My husband looked surprised.
Susan, what's the matter? What are you doing here? And you brought the dog.
I felt a sense of relief at finally seeing another human, but there was something else I needed to address.
Is this place pet-friendly? Can the dog and I come in?
Susan, it must have been cold outside. Here, a drink. Have a drink.
I took a sip from the glass that was handed to me. Delicious. Not just the drink, but the kindness of my husband's relatives, who were meeting me for the first time, warmed my heart. I kept drinking as they encouraged me to have another glass, and soon I felt the alcohol taking effect. When you're tipsy, you start to say things you've been holding back.
Tiffany and Emily locked us out, so we had no choice but to come here. I said,
I couldn't stop talking about what happened today and on New Year's. I might be judged for it. If I were sober, I might have worried about that. But I was drunk and didn't care, and everyone, including my husband and Thomas, listened intently. After I finished speaking, one of the relatives said again, "Those two are at it again." That triggered a flood of stories about Tiffany and Emily.
They did the same thing when they were supposed to be taking care of James's grandmother. She eventually moved into a nursing home because she couldn't take it anymore. And it's not just that, they don't even take care of that dog. They leave it all to their husbands.
When the uncle said that, Thomas finally spoke up. I thought about divorcing them when they mistreated my mother. But what they did to you, my son's wife, is unforgivable. I can't take it anymore. Thomas stood up. When we returned home, Thomas finally confronted Tiffany and Emily. Let's get a divorce. Leave now.
Susan is also to blame. She set up a tent and even took the dog into town. That's so unreasonable.
Someone out into the cold is what's unreasonable. I don't see it that way. Kicking someone out into the cold is what's unreasonable. What do you think family is? I wanted to get along with you, but I have reached my limit. I don't want to consider people like you as family.
Tiffany and Emily glared at me, but then they screamed. The dog had growled at them.
You never took care of that dog. You didn't feed him or walk him. You're not even worthy of being his owner. Serves you right to be growled at. You're not part of this family. Leave now.
Thomas made them pack their bags and kick them out. regardless of the time. Tiffany and Emily left without arguing, probably because Thomas was so intimidating. They didn't have many assets, so they ended up living in a small apartment to save money. They were spendthrifts to begin with, so they soon ran into financial difficulties. Not only does Tiffany have to worry about everyday expenses, but she also has to pay alimony. Since moving, life has been joyful every day with kind-hearted Thomas, my loving husband, and our pet dog, who's become like a friend to me. She's probably struggling with Emily, both of them working hard at jobs they're not used to. Relatives also started visiting more often. Surrounded by lively people who love alcohol, learning about various delicious drinks and enjoying conversations over drinks has become one of my hobbies.